Hi, I'm Rob Linhart with Hazel's Beverage World, and welcome to Hazel's Flight School Wine Edition. With me is Lily Margolis, our Director of Marketing, and today we're just going to focus on the basic techniques and fundamentals of how and why we taste wine the way we do as professionals and help you get a great sense of what's in that glass for you. So we're going to start with the white today. So Lily, we're just going to go ahead and taste. And the first thing, and I know you've all seen this happen so many times, swirling the glass. And why do we swirl the glass? Really one and only one reason. We're trying to get some air into the wine. We're trying to open up the aromatic components of the wine, get them in the glass so they're easier for us to detect. Also, occasionally, by the way, sometimes your wine might be a little too cold and swirling it will warm it up a little bit. You can hold your hands on it if you feel it's a little cold. But the key thing again, wake the wine up a little bit in the glass, get it going so we can smell as much as we can. Nose in the glass is all you need.
When I smell this wine, I start noticing like a lemon zest flavor. Or
excellent.
Those little white flowers that
white
bloom
flowers.
Summer, I forget exactly what they're.
Great descriptors, you're absolutely right. Two great descriptors that we'll see commonly all over white wine. Citrus, in this case, we're tasting a Sauvignon Blanc, and citrus should probably be in there. That's a classic note for citrus. And white flowers, so specific, that's awesome. We would have accepted flowers. It is important to know, by the way, that everyone's smell can be so different. In the best case scenario, you might be about 40% the same as another person smelling. There may be things in a wine, something like those white flowers, that I don't smell at all. That's just my nose. I might have things to say about this wine that Lily is like, what are you even talking about? I have no idea what this guy is smelling. Our senses of smell are so individual and so specific with us. I want to remind you and I want to encourage you to not, A, let other people tell you what you're smelling. What you smell is what you smell. And B, no, everything you smell, everything you taste is right. What you smell is right for you. So always keep that in mind. You are always right about the experience you have with a glass of wine.
I'm glad you bring that up because sometimes when I'm out to dinner with people who are older than me or have more wine experience, it's definitely intimidating to tell them what you're smelling and what you're tasting because you feel like they're right. But it's really encouraging to hear that wine professionals view the person who's drinking the wine's taste as the most important.
Believe me.
It's all about the person drinking, not necessarily somebody else's opinion.
Absolutely. And as professionals, and so many reps will know this, when I'm tasting a wine, when we're tasting a wine and evaluating it, the worst thing that sales rep can do is try to tell us what's in that wine. I know. I'm going to satisfy myself about what I smell. I'm going to satisfy myself about what's in that wine, and so should you, and so should you. Anything else you got here for us while we're smelling this? She's going to stick her nose in there. Now, we talk about the variation of smell, and here's a little trick. It is not uncommon for us to sense things differently from one side of our nose to the other. So getting both noses, or getting both nostrils in there is a good idea, but try one side and then the other, and you may find there's a difference. So when we taste the wine, then we've done a lot of swirling. It should be nice and awake. We're going to get it in there, and watch how I do this. Big swish, big swirl. You want to really get that wine all over your taste buds, all up everywhere where you can get that wine so you can get the maximum sensory experience. You're also mixing air with that, which again is going to help bring out more aromatics, bring out more flavors. I'm inhaling a little bit while I still have a little bit of wine on my tongue. And again, that's going to aerate it and it's going to force some of that a little further back, give us a bigger experience. And I like to take a breath and exhale through my nose. Get all those aromas going up through your sinuses and out through your retronasal passages, and you'll get sometimes a whole other experience. I tend to get oak influence on a wine on that exhale, not always right up front when I stick my nose in the glass. So bear that in mind as well. Again, your experience will vary from person to person. Go for it. Any differences? Do you pick up anything else?
It's more intensely citrusy than I was
All right.
expecting based on smell. The smell was a little lighter than I thought it was gonna be, but there is definitely a little bit of a sharper citrus.
A little more of an
Yeah.
intensity to it. All right, you're sort of getting that back up in there. Now also, because you've got that around on your palate, acid, sweet, salty, sour, bitter. Acid are the sorts of things that we get on our palate. This is more of a taste than it is a smell, if you will. But those interactions can pump up some of the aromas, some of the flavors that you taste. So that's why it's important that we do that, especially when we're evaluating a wine, to really swirl it around and really get it in there.
Do
So
different parts of your tongue have different taste buds? Can they taste different things in the wine?
Turns out that's a bit of a myth. Now, in the past, we thought there were zones. You tasted bitter here or salty there or sweet over here on your tongue, and that it was kind of divided into zones. We now know that's not really the case. Taste buds are more or less randomly distributed around on your tongue. And quick side note, we actually have taste buds that are not on our tongues. We have taste buds in all kinds of different parts of our body. And there's a reason for that. If we are looking to taste salt, for example, or pH, acidity, there are many organs in our body, many places in our body where our brain would like to know what's going on in that part of our body. Is it too salty? Is there too much sugar? Is there too much acid? Is the pH out of balance? So if we look carefully into our anatomy, we'll find that in many parts of our body, we have taste buds. The exact same chemical sensors that are on our tongue can be in our bladders or in our guts or even maybe in our lungs or heart. They're all over our bodies, and that's what they're for. They are chemical detectors. So again, you'll notice right away, we're not focusing too much on really diving into the wine. It's more about practicing how we taste a wine. So let's move to a red.
Quick question about red wines in general. I buy red grapes from the store a lot, but the inside of the grape isn't red.
Absolutely right. Very good question. It turns out that the vast majority of grapes, red and white, actually have white flesh and make white juice. To get the color into a red wine, we have to leave it in contact with the skins. That's where the color comes from. The longer we leave the wine in contact with the skins, the more color we can get into the wine. And we also get other things into the wine, but that'll be a discussion for another day. There are, however, a rare handful of grapes that are red-fleshed and do inherently make red juice. And we're not going to get into that here, but if you stay with us down the line, we will be talking about that. Good question.
Thanks.
On to the red. As before, same routine. We're going to swirl it nicely. Now, it is common for some wines, while she's swirling that, to need a bit of this and sometimes a little bit more than others. Sometimes they need so much air we can't even really get this done in the glass. And we're not going to worry about that here, but that's where decanters come into play and so on and so forth. We'll get to that later. But right now, it is important to know that sometimes you might have to wait a little bit with a wine. Be a little patient with it. Give it a chance to wake up. Sometimes they can be a little shut down or closed or tight, are words we would use to describe a wine like that. This one, however, I can already tell you is wide open. Initial impressions?
Maraschino cherry,
Good one.
wet dirt.
Earthy, dirty and earthy. Not everybody loves that, but common enough in reds and whites. Good one. For me, it's also, I think, a little leafy, a little brambly is a word I would use. There's some nice berries going on in there. I feel like I've kind of got my face in the whole berry bush here. That's a vision that I get, and you'll get that.
The leaves make me think of like fall. Also, when all the leaves have fallen off the tree and are kind of like starting to get packed into
Nice.
and you get that sort of slightly decomposing or like compost-ish scent. As
Good
it's getting
one.
A little colder.
Good one. Some of that kind of compostish thing really has a lot to do with the grapes themselves. Sometimes the grape itself, if it's really ripe, can kind of feel like it's gone into that place. Completely normal. Typically, the winemaker gets to make that decision. Getting some nice kind of cocoa notes here, too. As expected, partly because I know the wine. Getting some oak here on the back end now. As I breathe out, I get a sense of aromas of oak. In this case, a little bit of sort of a vanilla, sort of coconutty thing. And there are some nice woody spices here. It tastes almost, smells almost like a cigar box. What do you think? Now, while she's doing that, be aware I've already put some ideas in her head, so we'll see.
I'm gonna stand by my cherries, my maraschino cherries.
Fair enough.
But maybe maraschino cherries that haven't been in the fridge recently.
Warm.
And I definitely am being influenced by what you said. Because as soon as I heard you say like cocoa and spices, I'm thinking, oh, that makes sense.
You start to think about
Yeah.
those things, and we're all very suggestible that way. So a perfect illustration of why I kind of made a mistake there, and I shouldn't have shouted out those things until she had a chance to taste it. So keep that in mind when you're tasting and evaluating wines for your own reason.
Is swishing like that bad manners at a regular dinner party?
I'd say strictly no. It might seem a little weird. I think it's the spitting part that's likely to get you in trouble. Depends on the crowd, of course, and where you are. But the key aspects are getting the wine to wake up, giving it a good swirl, getting that air in there, making sure that you're really having that full experience with the wine, and most importantly, getting that first impression of whether you like the wine or not. If you don't like it, don't drink it. That's it for this episode. Thanks for flying with us.
If you have any questions today, put them in the comments.
Special thanks to Ellie Miller, our sales rep for Republic National Distributing, who provided the wines and her expertise today.
Come fly with us next time.